Hey Jude, don't make...
There's something strange that happens to a man when he hits his 60s. He can't remember where he put his keys 5 minutes ago. Ask him about last week and you'll get a blank stare. But put on a song from 1974 and watch what happens. Suddenly he's 18 again, sitting in a 72 Chevelle with the windows down, smelling the vinyl seats baking in August heat, feeling the V8 rumble under the hood, hearing the static crackle as he spins the FM dial, hunting for the right station. And he knows every single word, every guitar riff, every drum fill.
It's in the good yard, sweet summer sweat.
Scientists call this the musical reminiscence bump. The music you hear between 15 and 25 doesn't just stick around. It becomes the architecture of who you are. Those songs played during your first kiss, your first heartbreak, your first taste of freedom, and they got encoded differently than anything that came after. For American men who came of age in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, music wasn't entertainment. It was the soundtrack to everything that mattered. The draft lottery, the factory floor, the Friday night paycheck, the girl who got away. These 10 songs are time capsules. And these are the songs a man never forgets. Number 10, Fortunate Son, Creedence Clearwater Revival. September 1969. John Fogerty writes this song in 20 minutes, and it comes out angry. The same month, the first draft lottery since World War II gets announced, and every young man in America starts waiting to see if his birthday gets called. He's watching rich kids get deferments while working-class guys from towns like his get shipped to Vietnam. The factory floor knew this truth better than anyone. Monday morning, you'd show up for the shift and notice someone missing from the line. Bobby didn't make it back from Da Nang. The foreman would clear his throat and keep things moving because the work didn't stop for grief. Fogerty recorded it with no elaborate production, no overdubs, just raw 3-chord fury that hit like a punch to the gut. It ain't me, I ain't no senator's son. That line wasn't poetry, it was truth.
I'm going to help him share. And when the tax man comes to the door,
And every guy who got his draft notice while the neighbor's kids stayed in college knew exactly what it meant. 55 years later, the guitar still cuts, the drums still march. And every man who lived through those years can still feel what it meant to be young and powerless, while someone else's son stayed safe. But if that song gave voice to working-class anger, our next track went somewhere more personal. Moment when love turned into a battleground, and the only honest choice left was to walk away. Number 9, Go Your Own Way, Fleetwood Mac.
you can go your own way. Go, go.
1976. Lindsey Buckingham writes a song about the worst breakup of his life, then has to record it with the woman who broke his heart standing 10 feet away. Fleetwood Mac was falling apart, making rumors. Lindsey and Stevie had just ended their relationship. Christine and John McVie were divorcing. The sessions became a war zone where everybody wrote songs about each other and then had to play on them. The air in that studio was thick with cigarette smoke, tension, and the kind of silence that comes when you've said everything and none of it helped.
You can go your own way.
Stevie hated the lyrics. She thought they made her look cheap, but she had to stand there and sing backup on a song that called her out, harmonizing on her own indictment. When it hit radio in early 1977, it became the sound of every relationship that couldn't be saved. Picture yourself driving home from a bar where the beer was cheap and sawdust soaked the floor, and this song comes on. You grip the wheel tighter because you know exactly what Lindsay's singing about. Sometimes love isn't enough. Sometimes the only thing left to do is go your own way. But while California couples were learning to let go, the Jersey Shore was calling young men to run. And in 1975, running felt like the only honest thing left to do. Number 8, Born to Run, Bruce Springsteen. Summer 1975. Bruce Springsteen is 25 years old and convinced his career is over. 2 albums that critics loved but nobody bought. Columbia Records ready to drop him. One last shot. The same year, Saigon falls, and America watches helicopters lift off rooftops in defeat. Gas lines stretch around the block. The factory floor is handing out pink slips because jobs are heading overseas and nobody knows how to stop it. He writes Born to Run as a declaration. It's about being trapped in a dying town where the factories are closing. About girls like Wendy who deserved better than a lifetime waiting for a man to come home from the shift clock with nothing but calloused hands and a check that barely covers rent. They recorded it layering guitars and strings until it sounded like a jailbreak. Clarence Clemens's saxophone soars like the sound of punching out on Friday afternoon, knowing you've got 2 whole days before you have to go back. And Springsteen's voice, raw and desperate, delivers every line like survival depends on it. You heard it driving through towns just like the one he was singing about. Towns where the factory whistle still blew but fewer guys answered every year. And you gunned the engine a little harder, felt like maybe you could outrun whatever was chasing you. Song Dansa didn't promise you'd make it. But it promised that running was better than staying. That working for the man your whole life without chasing your own dream was a slow death nobody deserved. But if Springsteen captured the desperate need to escape, the Midwestern fields of Michigan were whispering something different. A truth about the nights we can never quite get back. Number 7. Night Moves, Bob Seger.
Waiting on the thunder.
Seger is 31 years old, writing a song about being 16, and the distance between those 2 ages is everything this track is about. Night Moves is a eulogy for the version of yourself who thought summer would last forever. Seger's looking back at his teenage years in Ann Arbor, remembering driving out to the countryside where you could smell the cut hay and hear nothing but crickets and your own heartbeat. Her hair smelled like summer, and the radio played low so you could hear it, but not loud enough to kill the moment.
So, could he use a few pounds? Tight pants points hollering out.
The arrangement starts quiet and builds exactly like memory works. Working on mysteries without any clues. Working on our night moves. 9. Captured everything about being young, exploring bodies and feelings and futures without knowing what any of it meant. The genius is in the ending, when Seger's voice cracks, singing, "I woke last night to the sound of thunder, how far off I sat and wondered." That wondering, that distance between who you were and who you became, is what hits hardest. The thunder is time itself, reminding you that those nights are further away than they've ever been.
Just listen, boy, living by the sword.
Every man who hears this song goes back to his own night moves, to the girl whose name he still remembers even if he can't remember what he had for lunch, to the version of himself who thought he'd stay young forever. Before we get to number 6, what was your first car? What song was playing the first time you really opened it up on the highway? Drop it in the comments. We're reading everyone. Number 6, Sweet Child O' Mine, Guns N' Roses. Summer, 1988. Hair metal is saturating the radio. And then Guns N' Roses shows up and reminds everyone what dangerous actually sounds like. Slash came up with that opening riff as a warm-up exercise in a rehearsal space on Sunset Boulevard that smelled like stale beer and cigarette ash. He never meant it to be serious. Izzy Stradlin heard it, started playing rhythm underneath. Axl walked in, and the whole thing came together by accident. The song captures Axl writing about his girlfriend Erin Everly, about finding something pure in a world trying to corrupt you, about that one person who cuts through all the noise. What separated this from every other rock ballad on the charts was the edge underneath. Guns N' Roses still sounded like they might fall apart at any second, and that danger made it real. And here's where the legacy takes over. Picture a father in his 60s standing in the garage, and his grandson walks in with a guitar. The kid fumbles through that opening riff, gets it wrong, tries again. And the father feels something catch in his chest because that's his song, from his time. And now it belongs to this kid too. 3 generations connected by 6 strings and a riff Slash never meant to be serious. These songs don't die. They just get passed down, reborn in the hands of kids who weren't alive when they first hit the radio. But if Guns N' Roses brought back the edge, our next song went somewhere darker. Where the guitar didn't attack, it bled. Number 5, Comfortably Numb, Pink Floyd.
This is not how I am.
Roger Waters and David Gilmour are barely speaking to each other. Outside the studio, the Iran hostage crisis dominates the news. The 70s are ending not with celebration, but with exhaustion. And somehow, out of that dysfunction, they create one of the most emotionally devastating guitar solos in rock history. Waters wrote the lyrics from 2 real experiences: a doctor sedating him before a show when he had hepatitis, and the emotional numbness that comes from years of being a product instead of a person.
I had a fever. My hands.
The sessions were tense, with unspoken resentment between duo men who'd built something massive together and now couldn't stand to be in the same room. Waters sings, the verses detached and clinical. "Hello, is there anybody in there?" Gilmour takes the chorus, his voice making surrender sound like relief. Then comes the guitar solo. 4 minutes of a guitar, crying, bleeding, saying everything. Words can't. No flash, no showing off, just pure feeling translated into notes that bend like a voice breaking. For men coming out of the 70s, when factory layoffs were mounting and the shift clock felt like a prison sentence, this song made sense. It captured choosing numbness over pain because sometimes that's all you can do. And crucially, it never judges that choice. Sometimes feeling nothing is easier than feeling everything. Number 4, Freebird, Lynyrd Skynyrd. Lynyrd Skynyrd records a 9-minute song that becomes the anthem for every man who ever needed to leave. The same year, OPEC doubles gas prices overnight, but that doesn't stop anyone from dreaming about the open road. If anything, it makes freedom more necessary. You can smell the tobacco fields and red clay dust in this song. Taste the bourbon that fueled those long southern nights. If I leave here tomorrow, would you still remember me? Satsi Nainfor. That's no, not a question looking for reassurance. It's a warning. I'm already gone, even if I'm still standing here. Radio didn't play 9-minute songs, but Skynyard didn't care. This was built for the open road and for arenas where guys could raise their lighters and feel something bigger than the shift clock and the bills that never stopped coming. Around the 4-minute mark, the guitars kick in and everything changes. Alan Collins, Gary Rossington, and Ed King trade solos that build and build, 3 guys having a conversation through instruments. It's the feeling of opening up that engine on an empty highway at 2 in the morning. White lines blurring, nothing but miles of freedom ahead. The tragedy came in 1977 when the band's plane crashed, killing Ronnie Van Zant and 2 others. The band that sang about leaving on their own terms was taken suddenly, violently. Free Bird became a memorial, but the guitars still soar, and every man who ever chose the road over the roots still hears his own story in those opening lines. Number 3, Hotel California, The Eagles. February 1977. The Eagles release a song that will spark arguments for the next 50 years. Don Felder wrote the music alone at a Malibu beach house where salt air mixed with smog, recording the basics on a MPAT track, layering that 12-string acoustic intro until it felt cinematic and ominous. The guitar solo at the end, Felder and Joe Walsh trading leads live in the studio, became mandatory learning for every guitarist who came after. Both solos intertwining, reaching for something just out of reach. The lyrics were deliberately cryptic. A traveler pulls into a mysterious desert hotel. Everything seems perfect. Then he tries to leave and can't.
She got the Mercedes-Benz. She got a lot of pretty boys.
You can check out anytime you like, but you can never leave. Henley always said it was about the dark side of the American dream, about success that feels like a trap once you achieve it. For men who came of age in the 70s, this song captured the decade's particular hangover. The moment when idealism became cynicism, when you got what you were supposed to want and discovered it felt empty.
Stab it with their stealing knives, but they just can't kill the beast.
The album was recertified 28 times platinum in January 2026, nearly 50 years after release, proving some songs never stop finding people who need them. Number 2, Stairway to Heaven, Led Zeppelin. December 1970. Led Zeppelin gathers at Headley Grange, a cold, drafty Victorian mansion where breath fogs in the air and floorboards creak like they're telling secrets. Jimmy Page has a guitar piece he's been developing, delicate finger-picking that builds into something massive. Robert Plant sits by the fireplace with a notepad, wood smoke filling the air, and writes the lyrics in one session, barely revising. Buying a Stairway to Heaven. A journey promising revelation if you just keep climbing. The arrangement starts with just acoustic guitar and recorders, intimate and almost medieval. Plant's voice enters tender and searching. Bonham holds back, building anticipation. Then, 4 minutes in, the electric guitars explode and the song transforms. Bonham's drums crash in like a storm breaking. Page's solo soars, note after perfect note. He recorded it in one improvised take and afterward couldn't remember exactly what he'd played, like it came through him from somewhere else. Led Zeppelin never released it as a single, but radio played it in full regardless, and it became the most requested song in rock history. When it came on, you didn't talk, you listened. And here's the legacy that matters most. Walk into any music store today and watch a teenager pick up a guitar and start playing that opening arpeggio. 3 generations connected by the same Delapan notes, the same search for something higher. Number 1, Hey Jude, The Beatles.
Hey Jude, don't make it bad.
1968. Paul McCartney gets in his car, the leather seats warm from rare English sun, and drives to Surrey to visit a 5-year-old boy whose world is falling apart. Julian Lennon's parents are divorcing, John has moved on with Yoko, and the boy is caught in the middle. McCartney starts singing on the way there, making up a song to comfort the kid. By the time he arrives, he has most of the melody. Back in London, he keeps working on it, changing Jules to Jude, because it sounds stronger, more universal. The line, "The movement you need is on your shoulder," Lennon stops him cold. That's the best line in the song. They recorded it in July 1968, packed into the studio for the orchestral section and that 4-minute na 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 coda. The room hot with bodies and ambition and something that felt like hope, even though the world outside was on fire. September 1968 was brutal. The Democratic Convention ended in riots in Chicago. King and Kennedy had been assassinated months earlier. Vietnam was tearing the country apart, the smell of tear gas still hanging over American cities. And into that chaos came 7 minutes of the Beatles telling you to take your pain and make it better, then inviting you to sing along until you believed it. Defiant hope. The kind that knows things are bad, but refuses to surrender. The number that matters isn't on any chart. It's the number of times this song has played at bars, where men who thought they had nothing in common started singing together and forgot to be strangers. Final piece of the legacy. Picture a wedding, maybe your son's or your grandson's. This song comes on. 3 generations on the floor, all singing Na 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 Bersama. These songs don't belong to us anymore. They belong to everyone who needs them. These 10 songs are the architecture of memory for a generation of American men. The soundtrack to the draft lottery and the first car, to the vinyl seats baking in August heat and the FM dial crackling in the dark, to the factory floor and the Friday night paycheck, to the girl who got away and the open road that promised everything. A man in his 60s can't remember lunch but remembers every word of a song from 1974 because that song isn't just sound. It's a piece of himself, perfectly preserved, ready to take him home whenever he needs it. These are the 10 songs we never forget, the memories that don't fade, and every time we hear them, we're young again, if only for as long as the song lasts.